Alright, with the first weekend in January fast approaching, it's time to jump into the new Kayo KT250 to get it prepped for the first ride of the new year. Now there's a couple of things we're going to do to this bike today. Mostly it's just suspension and ergonomics wise and some protective stuff, but nothing too major. We're quickly going to run through what the game plan is for the day, and then we'll jump into the work. So first off, I think we're gonna handle the front end first, then we'll kind of handle the mid of the bike, and then handle the rear end. We need to pull the bars, flip around the bar mounts. As you can see on the old race bike, I've got the mounts in the forward mounting position. There's two mounting positions on the triple clamps, and I've got the bar mounts flipped around in reverse. That's how I like to run them, and then I run the bars in a neutral position. We need to pull over the bark busters. I've got some new flags for them, and then we are also doing new grips and new grip donuts on the bike. Nothing wrong with these grips. I just prefer a little bit thicker and softer feeling grips. With that done, we can drop the forks about 10 mil, as I've got them on this bike, and then we can run through the clickers on the front suspension, and that'll be the front end done. Next thing we need to do, kind of in the midsection of the bike, this is a billet brake lever, rear brake lever. We need to pull this over and install it on the other bike instead of the stock one on here. And then lastly, for the rear end, we need to pull the back shock out of the old bike, pull off the spring, install it on the new bike, and then obviously just match up the clickers as well. I've got some tires. We'll do that last because I need to pull the rims off and take the new bike through to Claude's shop, because he's got a tire mounting stand, and that's going to make life much easier to swap over the tires, because we need to pull the mooses out of these wheels. And then I've got a spare fairly used front tire that we're going to throw on, and then I've got a brand new Racecraft. It's not a gummy tire, but it's a soft compound tire for the hard enduro stuff. So we'll do that last and do all the other stuff. And lastly, we need to just bleed the brakes just to be sure, oil up the filter. And after I've done a couple of heat cycles on this bike, I'm just gonna flush the fluid that comes in it, just to pick up some of the residual material from the machining of the parts internally, some clutch material and all that stuff, drain that out and fill it up with some better quality motor fluid. And then also, last but not least, we are going to be changing over the 9 series plug that comes in the bike to a BR7 NGK plug. If you are just cruising around with this bike, the 9 series plug is fine. But if you do hard enduro and you constantly like in the quarter to half throttle range, the 9 series plugs do fail. So warmer plug, the bike will run better. I would recommend putting a warmer plug in it regardless of what type of riding you do. And then we are going to run the bike or the motor in stock form for a couple of rides, maybe 1 or 2 rides, and then we'll transfer over the Boyson reeds and the better performing pipe onto this bike, just so we can have a good comparison for you guys. So that's what's in store for today. Hope you guys stick around. Yeah, let's jump into the work. So the bar mount setup is fairly simple. You've got this little bushed threaded rod that slides in from the bottom. It's got another bush on the top, and then the bar mount literally just screws onto that threaded rod. So we've got a forward and a rear mounting position. As I mentioned, I like to run my bars in the forward mounting position with the handlebar mounts in the rearward position. As you can see, they are offset, so that moves it a little bit further to the rear while moving it forward, if that makes sense. So now, with the bars out of the way, we're quickly going to drop the forks, adjust the clickers, and then we'll throw the handlebar back on. So with the fork heights adjusted in the triple clamps, the next thing I'm going to do is go through and adjust the clickers to my preference. So on compression, this is the adjustment at the bottom of the fork. I run it 16 clicks from the right. So the further left you go, the softer it is. The further right you go, the harder it is. So I'm going to screw the clicker in all the way, and then I'm going to back it out 16 clicks, and the same with the top. So for the rebound, the further right you go, the softer it is. The further left you go, the harder it is. So I'm going to turn it all the way to the left, or all the way in, and then I'm going to back it out 5 clicks. So you're going to screw them all the way in, all the way in. Then I'm going to go back 5 clicks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and that's the rebound done. Same story on the compression at the bottom. You've got to remove the little grommet at the bottom, and then you adjust it. So we can go in all the ways. And then we're going to back it out 16 clicks. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 14, 15, 16. Don't forget to reinstall your rubber grommets, otherwise all sorts of gunk is going to get in there and you're going to have a bad time adjusting those clickers. Alrighty, with that done, we can reinstall the bar mounts and the handlebar and start pulling off the grips to install the new grips and handguards. So as I mentioned before, it's just this piece of rod with thread on either end. You're gonna slide it in there, install the top grommet, and then we can start screwing in the bar mount. Now once it's in position, you will tighten it on the bottom. Grab your size 14 wrench, and then you can start tightening it down. A ratchet wrench would be ideal, but we don't have that, so. And as I mentioned, I like to run the bars kind of in a neutral position in line with the forks. So we'll adjust that in a second here. With any type of pinch bolt like this, you want to make sure you tighten down both ends equally so it doesn't pinch harder on one side rather than the other. So the next task is to install the Pro Taper soft grips that I got. These get nice and gooey, offer you a lot of grip, so you don't need to clinch the handlebar to death. You can hold on with a relaxed grip and you still have a lot of grip. Okay, so with the fresh grips on, safety wire on, and the grip donuts on, it's time to move on to pull off the handguards. I already removed the flags so we can install the new flags. Just a little side note, I do not use grip glue because these grips are so sticky, they don't really move on the handlebars. I just use safety wire in general, one at each end and one in the center. You fold it up from the bottom, twist them over each other, so it's basically got a double loop going around each portion where you've got the safety wire. I found that to be more than adequate to keep the grips in place, and you don't need to go through the mess of working with grip glue. Alrighty, with the overly complicated handguard installation done, it's time to jump into the midsection. We're going to swap out the brake lever and we're just going to tighten down the gear lever. So let's get into that. Okay, so this is a very easy assembly and disassembly. So you just remove the 12mm nut that's in the back here that holds the lever in place, unhook the spring and the 8mm bolt on the little clevis over here. Pop it through the front, pop in the spring, which is probably going to be the most tricky part. There we go, just got to stretch it out a bit. With the lever on the spring, you can reinstall the 12mm nut at the back and the 8mm bolt on the clevis. Okay, with that done, the next step is to pull the rear shock on both the bikes. Now this is going to be a bit of the pain in the butt because you've got to pull the seat, pull the tank, pull the silencer so you can actually lift up the subframe. I'm sure you can wangle the shock out without doing all that stuff, but sometimes more work is less work, and you're gonna have much easier access with the subframe lifted up. So yeah, ain't nothing to it but to do it. And I don't think I'm gonna do another time lapse, so I think we'll just do a good old snapperoo. Okay, so we've got the shock torn out of both the bikes. Not too bad, pretty quick. Just got to pull the tanks and a couple of bolts. As you can see here, this is all that it takes. So definitely don't be scared to tear your bike apart. Just kind of keep the stuff together. Anyways, here we've got the old shock with the stiffer spring and the new shock with the stock spring. So as you can see, the stock spring is a 280-pound spring. I'm not sure on the rating of the stiffer spring. I pulled it off of one of the Moto Pro 4-stroke bikes. I think if I remember correctly, when we checked, it's a 350-pound spring. And as you can see, the difference in the adjustment there. So I just measured with the calipers, and that's what we need to set the spring height to on the new shock. So I'm going to use the suspension tool, loosen them up, switch over the springs, and then set the spring height. Well, dang, that was sketchy as heck. The clamps can't loosen up enough. You can't twist them all the way to the top to just release pressure off the spring. So I had to use these spring compressors, but initially they were this long and they couldn't get a proper grip on the coil, so they kept slipping off. So I had to cut to modify them. This one works pretty sweet. This one I cut a bit short, so I had to get in there with a file so it can recess into the little hook, so it actually grips the spring. Alrighty, so we've got the tires changed over. We've got a nice and soft back tire for the technical riding, and just a used tire in front with the moose in, with it lubed up. We are going to just do a couple of heat cycles on the bike, and yeah, then we'll jump into the trail. So thanks for watching. I know this video was probably a bit tedious with all the time lapses, but yeah, we got all the work done, and now the next video you guys will see is the ride that we are doing tomorrow. But yeah, both videos will be live next week. So it's the wrenching video and then the first ride video. So sorry about the wind noise, but yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Stay tuned for more. Hit that like button, hit subscribe. Peace out and keep ripping.